Oh man. So Brett, I got a new computer recently,
Yeah,
a- as you know, and so
Mac, right?
it's always exciting, but then it's also like, oh yeah, I need that installed, or oh, how does that work again? Because you get so used to doing things the old way, and so here we are. I'm trying to remember how Zoom works. That's yeah. You ever go through that?
Yes.
It's good stuff. Well, people are starting to roll in. I'm already seeing some familiar names. That's awesome. I'm so glad to see everybody, and thank you for joining. For those of you that have attended our webinars before, then you know that we like to keep things somewhat interactive. So I'd love for you to use that Q&A box. I think we have chat turned off by default, but Q&A is a great spot to drop those questions or comments. We're going to be reading those as we go through, and if it makes sense, we'll just save it um, for the end. But if it makes sense, we'll grab it real time. So we'll do that. Um, Before we get started, though, I guess intros are a good place. So I'm Sam Schumacher. A lot of you know me, and I've been working in this industry with accountants, really just consulting on everything from data migrations and data strategies, right on through to really robust compliance type work. For about 10 years, and currently I lead the solution team. So I'm excited to be here with my co-host, Brett Helgeson, who also happens to be our president and CEO. So Brett's got a long history in technology, and he's really got his finger on the pulse when it comes to managed IT and security strategies, which is why he's joining me today. And he's going to be sharing some awesome stories, anecdotes, some real world examples, and some information he's collected along the way from the folks that are in the FBI that he meets with from time to time. And we've got a great hour planned.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Looking forward to being here. And to Sam's point, I've been in business ownership and leadership in multiple industries for the past 23 years. So I can appreciate both the perspective of sitting in your client's shoes and having a CPA, as well as working alongside CPAs as our clients, and also in even peer advisory groups and executive groups that I participate in. As Sam mentioned, we also for years have been in an organization called ACTRA. It's the Arizona Cyber Threat Response Alliance, and it's both a government as well as private and public company partnership with the FBI, and it's all about just sharing and educating on threats. You're able to you know post in kind of confidential forums and things of that nature when you experience things and you don't want to make it public that you're encountering this potential cyber related challenge, and you can use that entire organization to really try to help and understand if people have seen these types of threats before, if they're brand new 0-day things or otherwise, and how to mitigate them, as well as potentially recover from them if you've fallen victim. So appreciate being here and sharing some stories. And as always, we're lucky to have Sam with us because he knows this space so well as also.
Oh, you're too kind. Today, folks, we're going to be talking about the elephant in the room. So we sort of alluded to it in terms of the topic, but we're going to be talking about why cybercrime is increasingly targeting small and medium-sized businesses, including your own. And hopefully, when the hour is over and we end our time together today, you're going to understand the growing threats and the real business impacts that are facing you and your clients. You're going to know why you're positioned to play a key role in that defense strategy. And you're going to learn how to dip your toe into those cybersecurity advising waters and how to leverage partnerships to really drive awareness and adoption with your clients. So that is why hopefully we're all here today. And why it matters now is well, let's start here. So we all have a favorite client, whether we want to admit that to any of our other clients or not. We all have a favorite. So I want you to sort of think about who that is, put them in the back of your mind, and as we progress throughout the rest of this hour and we're telling some stories and we're sharing some cautionary tales, I want you to think specifically about that client. Think about how our stories and how the impacts might impact that client and what that would mean for them personally, professionally, for their business, for their employees. And so just think about that favorite client as we go through these scenarios today. So why it matters now is The research, the data that's out there is increasingly telling us that small businesses are waking up. This is really great news for you as accountants because you help them with their budget strategies. So what we're seeing in the reports is that upwards of 80% of small businesses are now reporting that they're worried about cyber attacks, and 83% are planning to invest more next year. So this is fantastic news for us because we've been watching businesses struggle with these breaches and watching businesses close as a result of them. And it means that those clients are aware, they're starting to wake up to the growing threat landscape, and they're ready to do something about it. And that is where we're going to talk about positioning and how you, as the accountants and bookkeepers, are really perfectly positioned to help those clients put some strategies in place.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I always like to do is just bring to light some of the situations that we see in the real world on a pretty frequent basis. And the experiences that I'm going to share are not only tied to our actual CPA friends, not only in our peer groups, but clients and otherwise. But I'm also going to bring in some stories that are tied to just other clients we have also. I mean, we certainly deliver services and are partners with a lot of enterprise level clients, but the vast majority of our client base is the small and medium sized business, which is exactly where we fall as well. But just some, within the last year, there are some stories that really stand out for me. And in many of those cases, it's unfortunately one of those situations where they did not have an IT partner that was really sophisticated. They found themselves in a predicament that was incredibly difficult to recover from. And just last year, right after Thanksgiving, I received a call from one of our CPAs who ultimately referred us to one of their clients. This firm was not one of our clients, but ultimately they had they passed them along to see if we could help, and they wanted us to try to help after the fact, unfortunately. But what had happened is this firm, they were a construction firm, and they had reached out to their CPA just in an incredible amount of stress and anxiety. And what happened is one of their quote unquote most sophisticated and conscientious team members when it comes to security and things of that nature, who happened to also be an administrator to a lot of their systems, happened to fall for a ransomware event that came across their email. So a vendor that they had worked with for a lot of years had been hacked, business email compromise. So a malicious actor was leveraging their real email. They had delivered to their contact list, email with malicious attachments, and the individual within this company opened it, and they had opened it without expecting this email, right? It's many times we get things from people that we're not expecting, and that's always time to raise an eyebrow and think twice. And this individual didn't, and they weren't expecting it, but they had opened it. Nothing happened at that immediate time, according to what she had said. But ultimately, what did happen is she had downloaded some malicious, some malware, as well as given some access unknowingly. And because she was the administrator to a lot of their systems, she did something that we don't advise, and that is she kept passwords on her computer in an Excel spreadsheet. Well, lo and behold, right, a weekend comes, right? Nothing happens for weeks on end. Meanwhile, this malicious actor was actually leveraging things within, passwords and otherwise, and doing a little bit of diligence and research on their system. And then on a Friday night after work, they launched a pretty significant ransomware attack on their servers and backup systems. And unfortunately, nobody had ever tested their backups for like the last 6 months. And so what that meant is they actually didn't have good backup systems, first of all. Secondly, a lot of them were already corrupted with ransomware. But I spoke to them after Thanksgiving, and they had just shared with me, that they had worked essentially 14-hour days all the way through Thanksgiving. And that actually continued, because I spoke to them earlier this year, that continued through the Christmas holiday as they desperately tried to recover their entire accounting system, from paper files. They were in the construction industry. They were one of those folks that, fortunately, in this instance, actually had captured the vast majority of their documentation in paper as well. And so they had, a full room of file cabinets and whatnot. But they refused to pay the ransom, and it's a big number too. Right? I mean, I think the average is typically in that $50,000 range. I think Sam will talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yep.
And shockingly, that's exactly what they asked, but they refused to pay for it. So this business was able to recover through a ton of pain and effort and long hours, and they still could obviously never get that accounting system back to where it was, but they were able to stay in business. And unfortunately, there are many stories like that where that's not the outcome. The separate situation, we did actually have one of our clients. They were not in the CPA world, but this happened just a few months ago. And they reached out to me. They're a part of our cyber education and training program, which means we're trying to educate all of their staff through simulated phishing and things of that nature. But they too had been the victim of one of their vendor partners. They're in the real estate business, so they deal with pretty significant transactions. And that firm that they work with, again, compromised via business email. They had handed over somebody within their organization, handed over credentials. Those folks, the malicious actors, ended up starting to operate out of the legitimate business email account of this end user at the company. And I'm sure you've heard some of this before, right? But when they get into those types of accounts, ultimately they set up all kinds of rules and things of that nature to make sure that they can continue to operate unseen as much as possible. So they might send out a barrage of emails and things of that nature with specific subject lines. They create the rules within Outlook so that if anybody does respond to that email, that it's automatically redirected to a different folder, in many cases, the deleted items folder. And then they continue to respond and basically respond from that legitimate email address like they're the person, the individual on the other side thinks they're speaking to, and they're not. But essentially what happened in this case is this situation, they ended up not moving forward with what would have been a $2.5 million event where they were going to transfer money, because through the email, the partner had essentially said, hey, by the way, all the funds, right, you need to transfer them to this new account number. We've got a new checking account. And they just didn't have those steps in place to go and actually ask the vendor or other client whether or not this was legitimate. But the CEO, who called me after the fact, said, I was getting ready to hit send and I just felt like something wasn't right. So this is a success story. I always like to mix in a negative or a very concerning situation that we need to avoid, along with the success story. And the success story here is the spidey senses, or what we like to call online street smarts, kicked in. And before they had a significant loss, which he shared with me would have closed their doors, they actually picked up the phone and made a phone call and said, is this actually legit? So just a couple a positive one, a negative one, and we'll share a couple more, but I'll turn it back over to Sam here.
Yeah, and as corny as it sounds, no clicky. It's when you're building that culture of security and you're building that awareness, sometimes it takes a little corniness. We were giving out those stickers at conferences this year, and you guys loved them. Because I think it's so simple, and yet it's the thing that trips up most businesses, is clicking on the attachment we weren't expecting, the link that looked okay but had something negative in it. So no clicky, guys. Take that home with you. And I wish that I could say that Brett's stories were unique. They just aren't. I've had numerous conversations, and they all kind of start with the event took place or the spidey senses took off and they called the accountant. It's increasingly the case that the accountant is the only consultant, the only advisor that small businesses have. So you guys really are the trusted advisors, and you're the ones that they call when things start to go south or when they have questions about the integrity of their business. this whole industry has evolved like crazy over the last 10 years. I remember back in 2016, the conversations were all about, hey, let's get to the cloud, let's get your data to the cloud, let's collaborate. And now everything's in the cloud, and everyone's going, well, wait a minute, how do we secure this multi-cloud environment? We've got stuff in Microsoft or in Google, maybe it's in ShareFile, maybe it's in QBO and wherever our tax management or practice management software is. We've got all these different clouds. So now it really comes down to, okay, how do we holistically secure that environment? And in fact, we're not the only ones seeing it. The AI CPA is seeing it too. So a direct consequence of all of this has been the AI CPA evolving some things. So that CPA exam now, you still have all your core stuff like accounting and auditing and taxation in there, but there's an increasing focus on that technical and digital acumen in things like IT governance and in cybersecurity and privacy and confidentiality. They're even sprinkling some things in there about that SOC 2 information. So that's going to be oh gosh, Brett, what's that SOC stand for? That's security and operations controls. I think that's what that one
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm so used to calling it SOC, I kind of forget what it actually is. And so you know, you guys as the accountants, as the bookkeepers, as the tax professionals, you are really uniquely positioned to build this awareness within your business clients, serve as their advisors and help them understand what those practical steps are that they can take to build awareness within their organizations, but also put some technology controls in place. And Brett was talking about how important cybersecurity awareness training is. I think in fact, more than 80% of all of the successful ransomware events that take place still come from email, be it business email compromise, so someone gave up their credentials somehow, or through some sort of a phishing link that's gotten some malicious software in place.
yeah. What I wanted to share regarding this is just the impact that the CPA firms can have out there. You know, a lot of the executives I speak with, whether it be through my peer exec roundtables or just business owners in general, you know, have expressed concern about how much information their CPAs have, right? Confidential information, highly valuable information. There's a lot of money moving back and forth, things of that nature, as it relates to refunds and whatnot. And when you're talking about that, there's this tremendous opportunity, I think, that is evident for CPAs to be an enhanced partner, to elevate the value that they bring to their client base. And there's no doubt that these individuals that I speak with talk about the specific value and depth of partnership they have when their CPAs take into account things beyond just all of the financial aspects or the audit or whatnot, right? When they start to look at this holistically, I've actually heard people, you know, business owners tell me like, I made a change from, you know, ABC CPA to XYZ because ultimately the first firm that I've been with for years was very tactical, right? They were great at what they did when it came to my tax preparation or my tax guidance or my audits. But I know this other firm is really good at that as well. And on top of that, they are incredibly conscientious when it comes to security initiatives, whether it be their own internal security systems that they take seriously, which gives me peace because they house a lot of my information, or they're helping guide me and they're providing consultative services to let me know that I should be really focused on things that, you know, are not honestly, you know, immediately top of mind, right? I'm focused on building my business. I'm focused on trying to figure out how I can drive my business forward and do what I do best. And I like to fill my gaps, whether that be through my CPA or attorney or my managed service provider or otherwise, by having individuals that are really helping to educate me, prompt me to do things that maybe I'm not, and things of that nature. So I think there's no doubt from all of the business leaders that I speak with, your clients, which are across industries, there's absolutely value that can enhance partnership, increase potential retention, increase what you charge them as well, and just really be able to protect them. To Sam's point about think about your favorite client, you know, we all want to see our favorite clients who become our friends succeed. And the worst thing that can happen is when you watch them happen to go through a situation that can tear down their business. And so that's what this is all about. How can we try to help elevate each other and really focus on building a strong perimeter to hopefully avoid these types of really detrimental and negative security events that can do harm?
We still hear the "I'm too small to be a target" sentiment from time to time, and while that perception is shifting, it does still exist, and you'll probably run into it when you're starting to have these conversations and asking your clients what they're doing to protect their businesses, what they're doing to ensure that they can recover in the event of a breach or an attack of some kind. And so what we want you to start thinking about is from a question perspective with your clients. If something were to go down, would they be prepared? Would they be ready to protect their businesses? So the three main reasons that we see that small businesses are becoming increasingly targeted is because the bad actors know that they're spending less on cyber. The data's out there. We know that the small businesses just don't have the budget for big enterprise IT strategies and cybersecurity strategies. Second, there's no one telling them that they have to in most cases. So most of your small businesses are not going to be regulated by some sort of an entity that says you must do A through J to be compliant with our policies, which will allow you to do business. So we just don't have that sort of regulatory control, and we often don't do the things that we don't have to. And then the lack of awareness. So the folks that do still have that mentality that I'm too small to be a target, those are the ones that are lacking that security awareness and lacking the awareness to know that there's this whole global industry that we're talking about, with lots and lots of reach. And then a fourth sort of bonus reality here is going to be that bad actors want their successful attacks to be successful as many times as possible. And if they attack a big business like a Target, like what happened when the HVAC company was compromised that was doing work in those Target stores, and Target was ultimately the target. Oh wow, there's some fun wordplay. Um, once that attack type is known, it's identified, all these really smart threat protection organizations that are protecting those laptops and those desktops and those servers are going to be updated. They're going to know that they exist too, and they're going to be able to identify that pattern of behavior and stop that attack the next time it shows up. So if we're attacking small businesses, small entities that don't have that sort of threat protection, then they get a longer runway and a better measure of success from these breaches. So that's why it's really important that we get some endpoint protection going in these small businesses. We make sure that those laptops and desktops and servers that are out there do have really strong AI-driven threat protection that's on them. Because right now we know that the data shows us that there's a cyber attack happening about every 11 seconds, and the average cost is going to be between $20,000 and $50,000. Brett, to your last story, it was on the money, 50 grand.
Yeah. Well, one thing, and I'll or emphasize a couple things that Sam says. There used to be, first of all, what we've learned through our FBI relationships, and this is really scary when you think about it, but they genuinely say that if a malicious actor, a government-backed type entity, whether some of these significant countries, China, Russia, otherwise, if they go after a company in a targeted manner, they're successful almost 100% of the time. And why they're successful almost 100% of the time is, to Sam's point about Target. They will find any way, shape, or form to get in. It doesn't matter if it's a service provider, if it's if it's a weak link on the employee front, they will get in. And historically, there used to be this mindset, right? That's like, well, I'm too big, right, to be a target for this type of thing, of course. And then with AI and the proliferation of malicious content via email, all of a sudden it didn't matter, right? Or scanning systems, right? Automated scanning systems, just looking for open IP addresses. It doesn't matter who's on the back end of those things. It could be a mom and pop, it could be a large enterprise, it could be an individual, right? But because of that, now all of a sudden anybody was a target, right? But now to Sam's point, they're absolutely, when you look at the sophistication with like social engineering and the way that these malicious actors can go about trying to understand the who, the what, the where when it comes to big enterprises, who or any enterprise, who the leaders are, where it would make most sense to have a convincing email, if they were to get access to get somebody to act, right? Because you get an email from the CEO of a company, maybe you're more inclined to act because you're not quite thinking about it as fast, or as thoughtfully. Those types of things now, absolutely, along with the fact that you can look and get information on any size of business out there. You understand who the small businesses are. And the truth of the matter is, to Sam's point, is that a lot of those smaller businesses, they just don't have the budget. They don't have they might have limited IT and security type requirements internally. I liken it to the thief walking down the street, that's trying to break into homes. They're gonna go into every open door they can find, or they'll probably pass up the ones that are locked. And so it's really all about trying to make sure that we elevate the small business, that you as CPAs help guide, inform, and also stress the importance of these types of initiatives to protect their business. It's a different world out there right now. And there's just, it used to be where we would encounter clients where they would really lean on the I'm too small type thing. Well, that time is gone, right? And it was gone years ago. But you just can't stick your head in the sand anymore. And as a prudent advisor, right, you just can't allow people to be not intelligent and updated on these things anymore. When you look at I'm sure a lot of you have spoken with your insurance partners, right? We deal with a lot of cyber liability insurance forms. We help our clients go through those processes. Not only are those requirements getting significantly higher in order to get coverage, right? It used to be where you might be able to get by and get insurance coverage without having, AI-based antivirus as an example. Those days are gone. Either you're going to not get the coverage, or you're going to pay a substantial increase in the premium in order to get it. So in a lot of cases, your provider or other partners can take care of those situations, enhance your maturity level, while then also allowing you to get coverage that you need. But when you see the amount of loss, which Sam's going to continue to talk about as well, it's just overwhelming. And there's a lot of things that we can do to help them collectively. And it starts with the way that you advise and inform them, for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully we're arming you with some facts that will help you with those conversations when they say, why the heck would anybody care about me? I have 5 employees and we do less than 20 million a year. Hopefully you're walking away with some stories that you can share with them as well. And I'll leave you with a couple more little notes. IT, having an IT provider is great. Keep in mind that IT is a general framework, and cybersecurity is really specialized. We can't all be experts in everything, and so cybersecurity, especially now and increasingly going forward, it is a specialization. It's tough to keep up on everything that's happening.
I'm going to add one more thing too, Sam, really
Yeah.
quick. I'm sure a lot of right, we all want to deal with professional and sophisticated client bases. You expect the same in return when you're working with people. And, we've encountered some situations, and I only bring this up because I think talks to the or speaks to the value. Um, we've had a I actually just recently, it was about 6 months ago, unfortunately, had a conversation with one of our CPA clients, and I had to let them know that we could no longer deliver services to them. The reason I did that is because he was a risk. He and his firm were a risk to us, which means they were definitely a risk to their clients. They would do things, despite the fact that we had systems in place, despite the fact that we had the security education and training. And I loved the individual, but he was so absent-minded that he would do really, really silly things that would compromise his computer and things of that nature. And it was just like, look, we can no longer take on this risk because you're now a risk to us. So in the same way, right? I know there's a lot of shared documentation and shared sites with CPA services that you deliver. I log into the portals with my CPA to do things with our business CPA, things of that nature. Um, it's really critical, I think, on that front too, just to make sure that we are all operating in each other's best interest and trying to protect each other as well. Um, I had one experience with a small business recently that they brought us in because they felt like they needed to elevate their security posture. Um, they did not have any type of an IT firm or true IT individual. They had their typical, the de facto IT individual. They had had a recent email compromise that led them to a ransomware event. And so it was time for them in their minds to elevate. Well, when you go from spending $0 on IT and security to saying we're actually going to take it somewhat seriously and make an investment and consider our security a strategic investment in our business, that's a gap, right? That's a big step to go from zero to whatever not is not zero. And it's going to be something that needs to elevate their posture. And the gentleman's response to me was, I don't know if I can stomach that. I think since we've just had this event, I'm pretty sure we're not going to have another one. And I had to educate him, tried to educate him on the fact that it's actually quite the opposite, right? The more frequently you falls for stuff, you think you're coming off the radar. No, you're going to be higher on the target list for sure. But that right there is a great example of a type of client that we wouldn't want to do business with anyways, because they completely had the non-sophisticated professional outlook on how to run their business and be a good steward of their business and their client base and employees.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this reality is costing the world. It's estimated that it's going to cost the world this year $10.5 trillion, which is just a mind-boggling number when we think about the average cost being between 20 and $50,000. But when we go back and think about that 11-second statistic, it starts to make sense. Like that math starts to add up. And we'll fast forward a couple of years, 2027, I believe, might be 2028. The experts that are doing all the forecasting on this are actually thinking that it's going to be closer to 23 trillion dollars in global spend, making it the third largest economy in the world behind the US and China, if it were a country. So that's
Wow.
fun.
Yeah. One other thing, Sam, with the different FBA agents I've spoken to, with their internet crime response
Mhm.
complaint center or whatever, they say that despite the fact that those numbers are ridiculous, like the ones that you just
Yeah.
stated, they figure that they actually only capture like 25% of the real reality. And why is that? It's because most people don't report. Most people don't want anything like that tied to their brand name and business reputation. So it's probably who knows how in the world can you estimate something like that when so much goes unreported?
Yeah, no kidding. And so I think, speaking of reputation, I think that's one of the key things that becomes a focus in the wake of one of these successful attacks. And so at the beginning, we asked you to think about your favorite client. So now it's time to think about them again. So apply any one of these stories that Brett shared about clicking on an email or maybe falling for that close call, and actually rerouting funds to the wrong account, and the bad guys walking away with 40 or 50 or $60,000. What would the impact be? Do they have a budget set aside to respond to pay out ransomware? Do they survive? Do their doors stay open after that? Are there any ripple effects in their community? Do they have projects that they can't deliver on? Are there people that don't make payroll? Is there a kids' college fund that maybe is impacted because of this major business event? So when we talk about real world, real life impacts to these sorts of things, and we're talking about small businesses, Brett, you were a small business owner not too long ago. How did you look at these types of consequences as a part of your strategy?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think your reputation is everything, right? It precedes yourself in the marketplace. And I really have always felt that how you operate in every aspect of your business is representative of the type of firm that you have, and ultimately the confidence that you build in the people that you do business with. And so, I've always felt that you have to focus on all of these things that are really critically important, and you have to invest in them like it's a strategic investment. It really is a strategic investment. If you don't do those things to all of the statistical, statistics Sam's mentioned, and real life situations I've seen, right? You can go out of business. You can do harm to the people that you're doing business with, or they can do harm to you. Thus, there is very much that symbiotic relationship where you want to try to elevate one another and educate one another for sure. When I think about the CPA world, one of the scariest things that I heard, and I believe there might even be some articles out there on these types of situations, but it was the first time that I had ever heard of this situation before, and it really caused me to think about my CPA at a deeper level in terms of how they orchestrated their business, how sophisticated they were, how they took security and IT into account in their operations. And it was through, again, one of these FBI events where we learned that there was a CPA, and obviously it's all confidential, no name shared or anything. But we learned that the CPA, they had been breached. And again, they had been breached via email and then that afforded this malicious actor, through that individual they targeted, to get access to different systems that ultimately were tied to all of their tax platforms, right? Their tax filing. I don't know if it was Thomson Reuters or whatever other platform, but ultimately the malicious actor gained access to their clients' tax returns and manipulated all of the account numbers. Well, not all, but a high percentage of their client base's account numbers in terms of where those IRS refunds would go. So ultimately, all of a sudden, months later, the clients are like, hey, we filed our returns. We haven't seen the refund from the state or Fed yet. What's going on? And then they find out, and it's like, oh yeah, all those refunds went out. They went out to somebody else's account in another country, potentially too, right? We all know how it happens. Goes to one account here in the US, and then it's bounced all over the place until it's almost impossible to track down. And that is one thing that I think also, when you look at the way that you speak to your client base about not only things that they can do, you become that consultant. It's also really important to talk about how serious you all take it internally for your business, because those types of incidents are really scary, and it's pretty crazy, right? What can happen in this day and age.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, your clients have your trust. So to Brett's point, it's critical that you do have your ducks in a row. If you're a tax practitioner, then you've been attesting in your P10 renewal every year that you have a WISP in place. And beyond ticking the box, having a written information security plan is great, but even better still is actually doing the things that you say you're doing in your written information security plan. So hopefully you're doing those things, or you have a partner that's helping you to enforce those things. Um, so we've been talking about why you're key in all of this, and the advice and everything that you can share. But Brett, I think you had some points on this topic as well.
Well, I just think, again, when you consider your place in the market, and how you're viewed, there's just no doubt that the level of brand brand enhancement, credibility, trust, all of those things that you're able to garner by being proactive in addressing, the elephant in the room as it relates to cybersecurity with your client base and otherwise. It's just so important, and I think a differentiator, and can win you deals versus not. It can extend the length of your partnership or not. Bottom line is it expands the value of the consulting services that you provide beyond tax, audit, and financial. And so I just think that, when you look at the evolution of the CPA firm, this is an incredibly valuable, way to just enhance that relationship and build a phenomenal brand in the marketplace as being a consultancy.
And one of the really cool things about elephants is in nature, in the wild, they'll often walk the same paths all the time. And what scientists have been able to show by that is by walking these paths, they actually create these natural fire breaks. And when we apply that metaphor into accounting, and we think about the paths that you walk with your clients repetitively, we're talking profit and loss statements. We're talking tax returns. We're talking payroll. We're talking bank reconciliations. You're walking these paths with them all the time and helping them build these strategies in their business. And we've already identified that you're perfectly positioned as their trusted advisor to help them identify technology strategies now that can be put in place to protect their business from cyber threat. And so this becomes a great opportunity for you to strengthen and deepen that relationship with your clients and stand out. It's a differentiator for you to offer this type of advice and this type of consulting. And remember, you don't have to be the expert here. You don't have to know how to implement the tools and configure all the tools and respond to alerts. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, and we're gonna move a little bit quickly here, just so we can get to the good stuff, the downloads and those checklists, Brett, because I think
Yeah,
we've dug in on some good stuff, but I want to be
yeah.
conscientious of time as well. We want to make sure that you're educating, even without expertise. You can educate, you can raise awareness, help them identify risk, and create those partnerships. And Brett, I know partnerships are pretty a passion point for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, everything is partnership, right? It doesn't matter if it's a client, a vendor partner, and a team member. Anything that we can do to help one another elevate is what I'm all about. And so, in some instances, it's just asking the hard questions and getting people's wheels turning. And then there, in a lot of cases, nothing satisfies me more than being able to help solve someone's problem, even if I'm not the source of the solution, right? All I can do is introduce them to the right person. And I think that's where a lot of this comes in, Rich, just trying to elevate each other and bring awareness, making sure it's at the forefront.
And I think, accountants do that all the time, whether we're talking about accounts payable
Yep.
solutions or payroll situations. You guys are already connecting your clients with the right people and the right technologies to help them efficiently run their business. And so, yeah, this is just an extension of that. I think that what we're identifying is there's an opportunity for you to also connect them with the right people that can help them build some business continuity and put some additional protections in place, because really you're going to be the ones that can sense those risks before your clients. And we've got a really cool video that we wanted to share with you today. It's short.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you have seen this, but the San Diego Zoo recently, when the minor earthquake hit, and how the elephants essentially went into their defense circle and start to surround the most vulnerable. The bottom line is, we've always embraced the elephant for all of the traits and characteristics it has. And that herd mentality, leaving nobody behind, the long memory, being strong and bold, really smart. All of those things are important, but this is really just what it's about, right? What we want to try to embrace, being in this together, focusing on trying to help one another, and we thought this was really great imagery for this discussion.
Absolutely. So what we've put together for you all is a couple takeaways. We've got some conversation starters. So the cybersecurity tips for small business. This one's great. It really talks to some of those foundational things that every small business should be looking at. The second handout that we have is that cybersecurity self-audit. I encourage you to take a look at this one. This one's going to be a little bit deeper, maybe a little bit more robust. And I don't want you to think that you have to be able to say yes to every single one of these boxes. These are things to get the juices flowing and start thinking about where your risks are, and what are some strategies that could be put in place to mitigate against those risks, because it's really important to acknowledge that a good cybersecurity strategy doesn't eliminate all risk. That's not what it's about. It's about identifying the risks that are your biggest vulnerabilities, and identifying which risks you're maybe okay with living with, because there's going to be some protections in some other areas that are going to keep us safe. It's impossible to eliminate all risk. Anyone that says they can do it is wrong, unless they're talking about just disconnecting you from the network. I think that would be the only way to do it, Brett. Just stay offline.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Just, yep, air gap it.
Everything's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some good stuff in here, and we'd love to talk with you if you have questions about your strategy, whether you choose to do business with Visory or not. We've got a great team that can talk with you about your current approach, where some of those gaps might be, how we might be able to help you, and more importantly, some strategies that you can take to your clients. Some ideas around what that could look like for you as an extension of your advisory, or maybe the start of your advisory practice, and building deeper relationships, and focusing on your clients' overall health and well-being, as it relates to their business continuity. So yeah, we'll give everybody some time back. Brett, any closing remarks before we let people refill their coffee?
Yeah, no, just appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some of the stories, real world stories that we have with not only our clients but our CPA friends. So appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and we'll send all of this out in a follow-up email, folks. So if you missed the QR code, worry not, it'll be in your inboxes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a great day.